Hey guys, Tim and Dave here once again with the single malt review, and Mingus obviously not to be, he's not going to be forgotten anytime soon, not while he has his way, with, you might not have even seen it yet, another extremely little mini. Dave, what's the mini? It's going to get close to the camera.
This is one of those just iconic names in the accessible blended whiskey market. It is Grant's.
It's Grant's!
Not even one of the fancy casts or special releases. This is the OG, the classic.
It is some Grant's ass Grant's is what this is, and if you're not already familiar with it, then where have you been? It's an absolute ubiquitous name in whiskey for various reasons, which we may get to a few of, but just the shape of the bottle itself will tell you who's sort of behind this one, and that is the Grant's, the world's the first Grant's, I suppose, in the long lineage of people with the name Grant, and that's the Glenfiddich people. Also Balvenie, also Isla Bay, also Coninbee, also so on and so on, but it's the Glenfiddich-ness of the company, which is why they are such big stuff, and they are enormous stuff. They are, I forget what the ratio is, but the closest distillery in scale to Glenfiddich is, I think, still about half the size. They are a Leviathan producer of whiskey, and a pretty Leviathan producer of blended whiskey as well. This is their most basic sort of output, and it's probably their best-selling, thing, because as popular as the old 5012 might be, it's not going to hold a candle to the blended market. And this being their basic entry-level stuff, with the Olympic swimming pools of this must move any given weekend of the month. So it's an important whiskey. Is it going to be one that's going to bowl us over? Probably not, but important. So we're going to give it its due.
So blended, be all manner of casks involved. Boy, how many different distilleries have whiskies in here?
Upwards of 25, but I'm going to say, Grant's being Grant's, with a bit of a library to choose from, the principal malts are going to be from their own sort of deck of cards. So there's going to be Glenfiddich significantly, there's going to be Balvenie, there's going to be Coninbee, probably bugger all Coninbee because that's a kind of a bugger all distillery. But and recently they've got the Isla Bay distillery, which we have featured on the channel, producing the
Airstone.
Considering the price, pretty good Airstone land and sea casks. And so they will have been, the blender will have been hard at work folding those new malts into the blend in recent years.
Grain is all Grant's own.
The grain, importantly, the grain all comes from the House of Grant's as well. That comes from the Girvan grain plant. We shouldn't really call them distilleries, they do distill, but these are factories by any other name, these enormous producers of the grain spirit. So a tight wee exercise by Grant's getting this stuff into their distinctive three-pronged bottle and out to market. And I don't know if there's a place under the sun where you can't find Grant's, so if any of this sounds interesting, then you should be able to go and sample it by yourself. Usually you'd find it in it would normally be further up here. I have seen 3-litre bottles of Grant's. They move them on a scale. But anyway, let's see. Let's give it its due. See how it comes out. On the nose, pretty unmistakable grain.
A few hint of acetone, some perfumey herbal aromatics.
Not offensive though.
No.
We have chucked our noses into some grain heavy blends before, and there's been an element of savagery to them, which doesn't really feature here. It's not particularly dynamic. It's not particularly complex, but it won't do you too far wrong, and it certainly won't come out swinging like a few of the other ones that we've tried. But really, that's much you can say on the nose. There's not a huge amount going on. On the palate, I quite like Grant's.
It's got a nuttiness to it. I'm getting almonds and marzipan.
A lot
bit of walnut.
The difference in Grant's to me, and it kind of shares this with Teacher's uniquely, but Teacher's kind of gets to cheat because it's got peated malt in there, which is always going to be more expressive. This may have peated malt in here, but in microscopic quantities. Many of the very, very cheap budget blended ones like this, you get the grain first and then the malt second. The malt kind of comes out in the finish and you get this any complexity that it's going to give you. This one is tuned a bit more differently, and I get the malt first and then the grain, and I think that's a favourable way around of doing it.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The grain is sort of like a supporting act.
Yeah. So whether that means it's got more malt whiskey in it, and I don't think it's going to go too far away from the tried and tested 40-60. Alas, 60 being the grain, 40 being the malt. There might be a few extra percent. They might have dialed it a little bit more in the malt whiskey direction, but I don't think they've gone necessarily overboard. I just think this has got a fairly finely tuned blend here that is maybe just a hair older than some of the other sort of absolute bottom of the shelf ones, and it would be reflected in the price because Grant's has always been a wee bit more expensive, and we're talking dollars here, but a wee bit more expensive than the other blends, just like Johnny Walker Red, another extremely powerful company, extremely powerful brand with the toe behind it to maybe charge a bit more and spend a bit more effort over even their most budget of whiskies. So what's really going in there, I'm not quite sure, but I have always found Grant's to be fairly pleasant, and I think it's also gotten better in recent years. You can be a fairly long debate as to the quality of the fluctuating quality of bargain basement blended whiskey, but it has certainly improved in recent years as the price of whiskey has otherwise entered high orbit, and even the most basic cheap whiskey has kind of followed along with it. And thankfully, the one silver lining behind that is I think the quality has improved, if only marginally. But yeah.
Yeah, that is just an all-round that's a pleasant taste of honey, nuts, and toasted cereals.
Yeah.
It's consistent and it's clear and clean.
It's not complex. There might be the tiniest, most microscopic thread of smoke winding through that from goodness knows what. There isn't nearly enough of it there for me to make a guess. It does fine with an ice cube. It doesn't really want an ice cube because once you cool it down, that grain whiskey just goes completely savage and dominates, but it can cope with a teensy bit of water. I have made cocktails with this. It will stand up to a old-fashioned, Scotch old-fashioned, but it's all right. It's all right. It's still well within the realms of affordability. This compared to, say, a 12-year-old blend or a single malt of any kind, this is still half the price. We're not mucking around here with anything expensive, but. I suppose the scores will speak for this, but things I'd hold it up next to. It's in terms of quality, it's right up there with Walker Red. It's not quite up there with Cutty Sark.
Right.
To maybe rank this in a really brutal way, but then again, Cutty Sark itself is that much. There's some more dollars added onto that one as well. That sort of sits at the top of the bottom shelf, so to speak. So, as Ilo has come to demand the scores of you, we should levy them towards this one. And I like this. It's not a whiskey designed to make me, as a taster of things, lose my mind or go crazy here. It's here to do a job, and I think it does it fairly professionally. This one is, in my mind, 80 points. What do you think?
Yeah, we have a very capable entry-level blended whiskey here. It is ubiquitous for a reason, because what it does well, and does it to a consistent standard. You pick it up, sip it, enjoy it. It's not going to deliver transformative experiences or anything. You mix it if you like, have it neat if you like. I'd give it 70 points.
There you go. There are other incarnations of Grant's. There is Grant's 12-year-old, there is Grant's. You can probably, if you really wanted to spend some freaking money, you could get Grant's of astronomical age. I'm not sure who that is for, but it's out there, and they have done in the past, and possibly do presently some sort of interesting deviations, like a peated version with a bit more peated malt in there. They do sherry matured versions. They do
Ale
bits and
casks,
pieces.
all sorts of vatted
Yeah,
releases. We should look those out in the future.
With this as a starting off point, we should probably look at the more interesting bits and pieces that Grant's produce out there. So this hopefully provides a entry point for us and you at home for your anyone going on a Grant's journey themselves. Beware of going on a Grant's journey. It often ends up in the police station. But hey, with that warning, Slanger, and we will see you the next time.